Andrea Dalton joins Miriam O'Gara on Business Block. Andrea is a hypnotherapist and havening practitioner based in Dublin. She specialises in stress management and anxiety relief and selects techniques to expand your confidence, blending hypnosis, NLP, and other wellness modalities. She's a member of the Women's Inspire Network. Monday's Business Block is powered by the Women's Inspire Network. Well, hello everyone, and you are very welcome to Business Block again. Today, we have another Women's Inspire member on. She has a business called Andrea Dalton Hypnotherapy and Havening. And as you can see here, she's got various different social media handles. So have a little zoom in later and take a look at those. I'm absolutely delighted to have my guest today, who is Andrea Dalton. Andrea, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks very much, Miriam, for having me. That's fantastic.
Delighted to have you. Where are you at the moment? Tell us where you're based.
So I'm based in Rathfarnham, but I do work globally online, which is fantastic. When I'm out and about in clinics, I'm out in Naas, Rathfarnham and Wicklow. Yeah. But at the moment, with the pandemic, the world, you know, we can go anywhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can go anywhere. And how does that work with your particular business? Do you find it easy enough to conduct sessions online, or is it?
Yeah, no, it can be very easy. Yeah, it's just what we say is when we're working with anyone, once they have a room that they can have to themselves and that they're going to be comfortable in. So if they're in their own environment and they have that space to be able to release and talk, they're even more comfortable than in a clinic setting, you know, because it's their own environment.
Yes.
And they just use headphones, or I've done it over, you know, using the phone, and it takes a few minutes just to set up with the phone. They have to be hands-free. So I need to be able to see the client and their reaction to make sure they're in a deep level of hypnosis or guide them into the havening. And
because you do lose something, don't you, on screen? You do lose certain cues, facial cues, behavioral cues, how someone's truly breathing.
Yeah, well, you see, I'm looking at the rise and fall of their chest the whole time, in person or online, if they're in hypnosis. So that's a cue for how deep they're going, and with the counts that we would use in hypnosis. And then for having, there's other cues. But once I can see from here down to their and their hands down by their side, if it's in hypnosis, or their upper body, just with the havening, this is what I'd be concentrating on, and their face, you're onto a winner, you know.
You must have been quite relieved to discover that works online for you.
Well, actually, when I was training, I had used both modalities when I was training. So I just jumped in. For me, it was just second nature. So when COVID came around, you know, it was a blessing in disguise, because I knew it worked. And I had every belief and faith in it for myself and for the clients.
You had the blueprint already from the training.
I was quite lucky. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So basically you're navigating a path from stress and anxiety to feeling in control, is it? Or just at ease? How would you describe that? How would you describe what you're trying to achieve with the person?
So a lot of people will be in a heightened state of anxiety, in particular now with COVID. It's just made them more in overdrive, if you like. And they're up here all the time. So instead of having small spikes, they're constantly up. Their cortisol levels are through the roof, and they don't know what it's like to be normalized, because they're in that constant state of fight or flight. So my ideal is to find out and unpick why they're up there in the first place, and to gradually get them to adjust, to come down and realize some stresses are normal in life, because life throws us curveballs all the time. Some stresses are normals, but it's when they're in that constant state of a high stress, that's not normal. So they gradually come down, they deal with the stress or the anxiety that's causing it. It could be something at home, it could be a work relationship, or it could be just in general fearful of stepping outside into the world. And then we address that. And most often it goes back in hypnosis to when they're very young, and something happened to cause that anxiety when they're very young. And then everything else is a trigger effect that will bring them back to that one moment in their life. So
and it's finding that. So what is it you're providing then? Is it techniques?
Both. So hypnosis, I blend the therapies, and that's the beauty, because one size does not fit all. And that's what I have found when I've worked with people. And I have a few other modalities as well that we can blend together or use standalone. So with the hypnosis, you're pinpointing back to one moment in time, usually the initial sensitizing event, we call it the ISE. And we reframe that, we desensitize it, remove the emotion from it and get them moving on. And then sometimes I'll teach the client havening, because it's a beautiful technique that they can use anytime, anywhere.
Yeah, I'm a little bit ignorant now when it comes to havening. Can you tell me a little more about it?
Yes, it's a psychosensory technique developed by twin brothers in America. One's both doctors, and it delinks the emotion behind the event. And when you're separated from the emotion, you can move on in your life with greater ease. And it's basically, you're just giving yourself a hug. So you just cross your arms, brush down to your elbows. And initially, with the beauty of havening is a client doesn't have to tell you what's going on with them. So if it's something really sensitive, I just get them to think about that for about 30 seconds or a minute.
Right.
Then I distract them. I might say, oh, what are you having for dinner later on? You know, and they're kind of going, why are you asking me this? All distraction. And then I get them to haven. And then you can do face havening.
Right.
And then you do palm havening. And this creates very powerful delta waves within the body and really feel good.
Yes, yes.
And it's called havening because it's like you're giving yourself a safe haven to go to. And everybody has the power to use this technique themselves.
Just with regard to the havening again, so you're almost stroking the person's skin, aren't you? You're almost kind of working with the aura and...
Yes, and it's very, and I am an energy therapist, and that's why I fell in love with this therapy. And I can blend in the energy work as well, and the NLP, the hypnotic language. So you're actually drawing quite a lot out of the client, how they feel, where the if it's sadness or depression or the panic in their body, where is it living in your body?
Yes.
What does it look like to you? Is there a color to it? Is there a shape to it? And then you can physically introduce energetically introduce a color that would calm them down. So every time they take an in-breath, they can breathe in, say, for instance, the color pink might calm somebody down. And then they exhale that thing that's inside them that they know has no home in them and that they want to free themselves from. And that can be the sadness, the loneliness, the depression. There's a few different modalities within havening. Everybody can self-haven. And in the morning, for instance, when I get up, not religiously now because I'm only human, but I will say, I'm going to have a great day. So I'll do this. I'm going to have a great day. I'm open to new opportunities, new possibilities. There's love in my heart. And you just repeat these affirmations.
Yeah.
And do that 4 or 5 times. Listen, everybody has time. Everybody goes to the loo during the day.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Can make a few minutes there.
Catch a moment where you can do that.
Absolutely.
You can.
Yeah.
You can. Now, so when someone contacts you, I suppose because of the way in which your brand is advertised, they probably think hypnosis first. So will you necessarily tell them about the other things that you can do? Will you tell them that this could be a blending process from the get-go, or do you wait a little while? Or
sorry, I actually tell them on the intake. So when I say I have various other different modalities that one size might not suit, one type might not suit you, and they'll come up for a consultation. And if based on that consultation, I'll then decide which is the best modality for them on the day. Invariably, working with clients, I do like to teach them a little bit of havening. It only takes 5 minutes because it's something they can use on themselves. It's something they can use on their children to help them feel better. And I mean, when a child falls, everybody automatically goes to rub the part that it's their knee, and you go to rub it. That's the natural healer in everybody. And havening is just rubbing yourself and taking that, just brushing down your arms and just taking that pain away and creating these wonderful delta waves. So that's part of it.
Do you ever have people nervous of hypnosis? Never mind the
absolutely, because there's a lot of myths out there about hypnosis. People are, can watch a lot of television and they see a lot of stage hypnosis. And more often than not, I get asked, am I going to be looking like a leprechaun? Am I going to be clucking like a chicken? And no, you're not. I have no interest in doing that. When I was training, I did that module, street hypnosis, and I liked it. But I didn't like it being done on me. I didn't like the way I felt for weeks afterwards. And in a clinical setting, I'm very conscious of somebody coming into me. Usually it's the last chance for them. They feel they've tried everything else out there, and this is their last chance to feel better in their lives. And I'm so conscious that somebody's putting their faith and trust in me.
Yes.
And I never want to leave anybody more damaged than when they came into me. Completely.
Yes, it would frighten me. Now, I've gone through hypnosis in the way that you are talking about clinical, and I found it very, very good. When I was in my early 30s, I did it, and I was nervous at the beginning, but I could not be in an audience. I couldn't be an audience member being brought up on stage. I just couldn't do that. I wouldn't like the feeling of being out of control in that way. And I agree with you.
I suppose when you're in a stage setting like that, in an audience, you're kind of up for it to a degree. Yes. Some people might have some alcohol on them, and you know, they're up for a laugh or a night out, and some people can be entertainers in themselves, and that's okay.
Yes.
But in a clinical setting, absolutely not. Where I'm here to help, as are all hypnotherapists in a clinical setting. And would you believe, well, you possibly do know, Miriam, yourself, that you're in a state of hypnosis every single day anyway? So if you've ever gotten in the car and you've driven from A to B and you're not quite sure how you got to B, but you got to B safely, that's out of habit, it's out of routine, and you just got there safely and you kind of sailed along and, oh my gosh, I'm here. That's hypnosis. Yes. Every time you watch the television, that's hypnosis. Yeah. And if you've ever seen a child game and they're totally zoned out, and you know the mom's going, come on, dinner's ready, and you're doing this, and they don't even blink their eyes, they're in hypnosis.
That's hypnosis. Yeah.
So
singing a song,
absolutely. Reading a book and your imagination is sparked and you're wondering what's going to happen before you turn the next page, that's actually a form of hypnosis as well, because we all have imagination.
Absolutely. Can I turn to the running of the business now with you for a second?
Yeah.
And we'll just come back to, for example, what this first session might be likely to be about. We'll come back to that in a moment. But just when it comes to the running of the business, is it a difficult area to actually get started in? Do you need lots of insurances? Is it difficult to market?
Okay. You need insurance, and I would encourage anybody out there to have insurance. It's just a guarantee for everybody, and it shows that you're professional and be, you know, affiliated with an professional body, and keep up your CPD as well, because I firmly believe that's very important. And life is a lifelong journey of learning. You know, you can never know too much to help somebody. Initially starting out, I would have started out as a bioenergy therapist, but I didn't do it correctly. I did not market myself correctly. I did my case studies. Things didn't grow the way I wanted it to. A little bit of frustration, a little bit of mindset had to be worked on there as well.
Yeah.
But I knew it wasn't the be all and end to all for me. When I heard about hypnosis, because I've done a few other energy modalities as well, it was like the final piece in the jigsaw for me. And working with the subconscious mind was huge. It just, the grow for me grew. And with that, my confidence and belief in this is going to be the modality that works for me to help people. Yes. But it was like that last piece of the jigsaw puzzle going in then was actually the havening and the NLP, because nothing is ever a waste in life. And that's why I can blend therapies now, if appropriate, during a session, to help people get to a better place after the session has ended. So,
and so from a marketing point of view, did you find that hypnosis and havening was the linchpin that allowed you to market better as well?
They're more mainstream, if you like. Even though they're a little bit far out there, they're much more acceptable than energy work. is what
So
I
it brought
found.
you a little bit more into center ground.
Yeah, a little bit more, exactly. And then I've had a couple of business coaches, and what I realized, you have to market to one person, so one sex. So it's important that you get your message across clearly to that one person, and you speak to one person, because when you speak to one person, then many can listen. So if you get your message right coming across, that's important. So for me, definitely having invested in business coaches has helped, and having the right people around you. I mean, I had a fantastic friend and colleague who built my website, and it just got launched there, I think, last week. And, you know, I couldn't have done that myself. And I have to realize that I cannot manage everything myself. So I'm not an expert in website design. I'm not an expert in Facebook. I'm not an expert in marketing. That's not my forte at all. And in fact, trying to divide your time and split your time, you're burning yourself out, and you're not getting anywhere fast. You're not reaching that person you want to help. So recognizing that and actually asking for that help, putting those feelers out and getting the right person behind you. I mean, the woman who did my website is phenomenal. Phenomenal.
It's a beautiful website. Absolutely gorgeous website. I just took a look at it there this morning. So the Andrea Dalton.com, theandreadalton.com. It's very, very good.
It was too expensive to buy andredalton.com. So it's not me been elevating myself around that. There's a reason behind that.
I am the Andrea. I know what you mean. You mentioned there neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. Again, something that has been around for so many years in so many different ways, you know. But it is very, very high profile at the moment, isn't it? It's very on trend.
It is very on trend. And it's, do you know what I did the course with Brian Colbert of NLP Ireland, and it blew me away how important it is, but how everyday it is as well. It's actually quite a lot of common sense.
Yes.
You know, and but common sense isn't really that common. And I borrowed that from a friend of mine, Paula Ralph, a lady I know. It really isn't that common at all. And we've lost the mastery of that common sense. So it's just talking common sense to people, and also them hearing it from a different perspective. So me as they're saying, as the expert in NLP. Now I have a long way to go in NLP, don't get me wrong. And that's another journey for me to help people and to master it. But it's another tool in the box to help people.
It's another tool in the box that people do need to be aware is in teaching. It's in every kind of marketing as well. I think what some people get nervous of with it is when extreme marketing, extreme forms of marketing seem to use it. People don't often like being told what to do, you know, and you see a lot of it in social media. It can be both off-putting. The negative side, I think, is that it is sometimes off-putting when you are constantly being bombarded with directions and little things being dropped into conversation. But as you say, it is there. It is there from the time we start elementary school or preschool. We are subjected to it in teaching. Any of us who've trained as teachers will know that we're using it. Any of us who've trained as language teachers will be using it. If you use direct methodologies of any kind in whatever business, there is NLP in there. So as you say, it's common sense. It's seeing when it's positive and that anything when it's done in extremes, negative.
Yeah, exactly. It's just to use it for the people's greater good, not for their own gain. I have another friend, actually, Ronnie Innes, who's also an NLP trainer, and I noticed that, again, she's an ex-teacher. A lot of ex-teachers seem to be interested in it. I think this is a part of people that connects with it. But I can see how the hypnosis and the NLP work very well. Does the NLP come into play in helping you with your language when you are dealing with a client under hypnosis? It can do, yes. And even in the intake, so getting to know a person, getting to get into their mind a little bit more, break down.
So that's your first session? Would that be the first session that you have with a client?
Yes, the first session I would do would be typically 2 hours for hypnosis, or for the havening, because I include in that it would be what I call an intake. So you're asking them pertinent questions about their life, about their past, about where they are now in their life. What's their goal? What's the outcome that they're looking for a session? And, you know, on a scale of 0 to 10, how important is it? How are they feeling now in this moment? And what would they like to feel like down the line?
Yes.
What difference would that change make in their life?
Yes.
So you're prodding and you're asking these questions here. And I like to think of it sometimes as an informal chat, because I like them to be at ease.
Yes.
And when you're at ease and when you start to trust somebody and you build that rapport, they open up so much more.
Yes, absolutely.
That's where the magic starts to happen before the session has even occurred.
But you were well trained. And, you know, from that perspective, I just felt, you know, having faith in the language that's being used, but also in your training. And that if you have that confidence, it literally seeps across and into the person in front of you, you know. And you would put that person at their ease. And the more you are at your ease, the more they are at their ease. And from an interviewing perspective, the same applies, exactly the same applies. So I can quite get what you're saying, that if you conduct it more as a chat, they will relax.
They will relax. And sometimes if they don't, you have to match them. So that's another thing in NLP. You match them where they are. Yeah. And then it wakens them up a little bit. Well, why are you doing that? Well, actually, because you're doing it.
So you're mirroring behaviors.
Yeah. So that's another, you're breaking down another barrier for them to open them up. So there's various, you know, tools and techniques.
So when it comes to strategy now over the pandemic, what changes did you feel took place in your business over the last 15 months?
I had no website, as I said, but at the beginning of the pandemic, I kind of felt like I was on a little bit of a holiday, because I got off the hamster wheel of dropping the kids. I was constantly in the car, dropping the kids here, there, and everywhere. But the holiday mode actually lasted a bit long before everything set in. And I found I was eating a bit too much.
Yeah.
And I was overweight anyway. So I put on quite a bit of weight at the start of lockdown 1. And I wasn't feeling good in myself now, Miriam, to be honest. And feeling, you know, a bit sad and sorry for myself. And a colleague of mine said, right, Andre, we're doing something about your weight and we're going to make a business out of it. So I have a second business called You Deserve. The website is You Deserve Change. And I'm very busy. I'm an independent parent with 3 children, twin daughters, almost 18, and a son who's just turned 13.
Twin daughters.
Yeah. And you can be all over the place, all at the same time, trying to get them here, there, and everywhere. And I have great support from my parents who happen to live next door to me. But something still wasn't quite right. I wasn't happy. I wasn't looking after myself. And I had very little time for myself, trying to keep my business afloat before the pandemic, seeing one-on-one clients, trying to niche down, seeing what really made me happy. And that was really difficult, because I wanted to help everybody out there. And that's just the person I am. And it took a long time, over a year, for me to niche down. And then Florence and I said, let's help you now. And we scripted 6 downloadable audios for very busy women. We've trialed it on men as well, and it works for men too, who can literally slim in their sleep. So you put your headphones on. Yeah. Ooh. So it changes your habits around food, your associations around food. I mean, I used to love Maltesers. You could give me a big bucket of Maltesers and I'd eat it in a sitting.
Yes.
And I'd no off switch for my stomach. None. I never knew when I was full. Sure. And even if I got pains in my stomach, I'd still want more, because there was something, I was empty inside.
Yes.
So in lockdown 1, we put our heads together and scripted these audios, 20 minutes long. You get 1 a week, each week for 6 weeks. When you're finished 6 weeks, you roll over again and start at audio 1. You listen to it in your sleep, and one other time for 20 minutes during the day, not when you're driving, not when you're working, not when you're busy, you know, just 20 minutes sitting down in the quiet.
Yes.
And that opened Florence's and my eyes open to the possibility of the opportunity that the pandemic was giving us.
Yes.
Because we're very busy out, you know, we're very busy when life gets back to normal, seeing clients in person. We have a waiting list of people who actually want to see us in person. They didn't want to do online on Zoom
Yes,
work.
a lot of people don't. Absolutely.
So, yeah, and I can understand that. So we trialed it, and I've lost 3 stone 1.5 pounds on it.
Oh my gosh, congratulations.
No, thanks very much. But there was no heartache to it.
Yes.
There was no, I don't need chocolate now. I can have a small amount of chocolate if I fancy it, but I don't live for it. I don't live for bar after bar after bar, or eating the wrong types of foods. Sometimes I might fancy a bar of chocolate and I'll take it out and I'll go, actually, no, I don't want that at all. I go for healthier.
Were you using these tapes on yourself?
On myself, yeah, because we said we'd see if it would work, and then we put it out to the wider market for men and women and trialed it, and then we launched it last, I think, August, September. We'd no website done. It was all done through Facebook, and you know, clients who are ringing up and they needed something because they've more than a COVID stone on. And now just a few weeks ago, we launched a website for that as well, youdeservechange.com. And there's a taster audio, pardon the pun, but there's a taster audio you can download for free to see if it's for you, because it mightn't be for everybody. And
well, I will overlay the website details and the audio details on this when we go to air. Yeah. I'll have that on for you too. That sounds fantastic. Yeah. How did you find and how did Florence find the idea of actually listening back to your own voices in hypnosis? How does that feel?
Well, it's actually my voice. It's actually, I'd be ever so slightly more techie than Flo. And so we scripted them together, and we spent a long time scripting them. And the way Florence and I work is we'd script something and then we could scrap it the next day. It's not good enough.
Right.
There needs to be more punch, more positivity, more impact for the person. And you'll put hours, days and weeks into something. But if it's not right, we won't issue it.
Yes.
So we got great feedback. It's actually my voice. Florence didn't need to listen to it. She has struggled with her weight in the past, a long past ago, but she doesn't now. And I just, look, to be honest, it actually, the one side effect it has, it's really relaxing.
Yes. You are at your most suggestible in your sleep, aren't you?
Yeah, but no, even if I sat down in the chair there now, and it is a little bit strange listening to your own voice, but I just accept it now. And to be honest, I just come from all my to-do lists, which are quite a few for the business, for both businesses, and kind of balancing your home life. And then I just come down and I'm just out like that. Yeah. Because that's my relaxation time. So it's a deep meditative state where I'm not stressing about anything. I'm happy out. And I just say to the kids, don't disturb me for the next half hour.
And they get that. Do they ever engage in any hypnosis or meditation?
Not really. They don't like, they're proud of me, but they're like, no, don't go near me with that, Mom. No, don't go near me with that. And a couple of years ago, I was asked to give a presentation to St. John's Ambulance out in Castleknock. And they asked me, would I hypnotize a group of people? So I did. And the only two of my children came out. The only two in that room who weren't hypnotized were my children, because they chose not to be hypnotized.
Yeah.
And that's the way hypnosis works. I don't make you do anything you don't want to do.
Yeah.
I can't. I don't have that power. I don't have that control.
Yeah.
So if they didn't want to go into hypnosis, they won't go into hypnosis, like any client. And usually it's a little fear. Why don't you want to go? Because I'm afraid you're going to make me, cluck like a chicken, or I'm afraid you're going to hear my deepest, darkest secret. Well, I'm not going to unless it's relevant. And by the way, if it does come out, I have no right to judge anybody.
Yes.
I don't walk in your shoes no more than you walk in mine.
Yeah.
I'm here to facilitate a positive change for you, to help you. And that's it.
Growing faith in the person, in the therapist. by the way they interact with you and reassuring them like that. It is very, very important. And if you have somebody, for example, I mean, I'm sure that you will have a lot of clients come through who would have already had experience and be in favor of alternative therapies and are coming towards the center ground experience with hypnotherapy. But if you have someone who is very clinical in their thinking, perhaps someone who is quite economical with their language, and they're quite black and white, and that type of person, are they difficult to reach?
They can be a little, but the thing I always hold on to is that they're here.
Yes.
They're here because they phoned me. I have screened them to make sure that actually the change is for them. And it's very important to screen a client before they come up to me into the clinic, because I have been that wife, hence the ex-wife bit. My ex-husband smoked and used to annoy me. I grew up in a non-smoking household, but it was getting heavier and heavier. And I phoned a hypnotherapist one day and I said, can you help me with my husband? There's two things I want help with. I want him to quit smoking and I want him to do something else. I think it was put the loo seat down, something silly, like really ridiculous. And the hypnotherapist said, yeah, no problem. Now that was wrong.
Yeah.
Because my husband did not want that change.
Yeah.
And if anybody phones, if a wife phones on behalf of a husband or a husband on behalf of a wife, except for a child, why are you phoning for them? Why aren't they phoning for themselves? Now, if they can't come to the phone and the wife or the husband is just making out the initial, seeing what I'm about, how much it would cost, what's the process, that's all right. I'll give them the information, but get your partner to phone me, get your husband or your wife to phone me directly, because then I know they're interested in the change, and change is then possible. But if somebody's phoning up and you feel like you're forced to do it, well, you're going against the tide straight away. And I won't waste my time or that person's time or money, because it's not fair on them.
And would you find that smoking would be one of the main things that a client would come to you with?
Smoking can be, and it's a whole different beast on its own. So it's quite different, it's a whole different element in its own right for smoking. And again, it's about a 2-hour session, and we do very specific things in it. So that's why it's only usually one session for 2 hours. Whereas when you're regressing somebody for, say, panic attacks or anxiety or depression, that could take a number of sessions. Usually I would say 4. And it can take a little bit longer depending on how their childhood was. Had they got a vulnerable childhood? What went on? Had they got alcoholic parents? Had they got neglectful parents? Were they adopted? Were they a victim of a natural disaster? There could be a lot of things, and it can be more than one thing. So it's like we're like onions. We're peeling back the layers all the time. Yeah. And shifting that negative energy that you've been carrying, because it is a dense negative energy. And I love it when another modality I have is the CAM method, Carl Anthony method, developed by the man who actually trained me in hypnotherapy. And it's a very physical, very doing therapy. But my gosh, I can sense the energy coming off them. I can sense the layers being peeled back. And usually they'll spring out here because they're going, I don't know what you just did. I feel great, but I'm exhausted at the same time. But they feel great because something has gone off them. They've let go of what's been holding them down for years and years, and they can go out and live again.
Do you make it a priority that the client, once they leave your session, whether they've had an epiphany or not, or had one of these sessions where they suddenly have had a weight lifted off their shoulders, that they go out somehow energized? Or do you need to do that?
I don't need to do that. I like them to go out feeling a lot better than what they came in. I cannot in any sort of state of mind guarantee an outcome for any client, right, because that would be very remiss of me. It'd be very misleading. And that's not what I'm about. I will give them my all in every single session. That's the only guarantee I can give them. I will try my best to get them to that better place. But they're also responsible too.
Yes.
They have to show up.
Yes.
They have to want to change. They have to show up. And, you know, there is a myth out there that hypnotherapy can be easier. It can be easier than other therapies, but it's still a therapy. It's still some work is involved.
Yes.
You know?
And commitment.
Yes. And to go through the sessions and not think, oh, well, I've had this thing for 25 years and 2 hours now is going to sort it. There is no magic pill.
No.
You know, there's no quick fix. It's a work in progress. You know, so I'm very honest with clients, you know, what percentage.
And that's professionalism on your part, being honest like that. That is what a proper professional person will do. They're not going to make false promises.
Yeah. No, it's not fair to anybody. And at the end of the day, I'm only as good as my last client. You know, your reputation is everything.
Absolutely, it is. Reputation is everything. And that has come up actually this week with a couple of other people I've been talking about. You know, you cannot put a value on your reputation. It is super, super important. You quote, you have a very, very nice quote here, which is up on your website. There's hope even when your brain tells you there isn't.
Yeah, because we're all wired to be very negative. We're like batteries, and we should have a good balance of positivity and negativity, more positivity in us. But really, we're bloody great at absorbing the negative. You know, we just attract it and we hold it in and we just want to keep it. So we even, you know, somebody pays you a compliment. Most people have to, oh, well, look at you today now. Thanks for that. You don't even say thanks. You're straight back. Oh, your top is lovely or your hair is lovely.
I know.
We find it hard to accept. Now, says me, who sometimes would blush, you know, it's a work in progress. But it's so easy for an individual, particularly in Ireland, to hold on to this negativity and keep on absorbing it until we're down in our boots and we don't even recognize that we're living it daily.
Yes.
And it's to let go of that and then balance, you know, gradually bring in that positivity and fill yourself to the brim with it.
An interesting point you make there, because I've noticed, because I migrated for a number of years. I was away for 18 years and I was in different countries. And this was a little thing I noticed, that it was often the countries who had an experience of war in their recent background, be it the Second World War or the Korean War. They were the ones who seemed to go for the positive much more. Whereas a lot of countries who the warring times might have been a little further back, and they hadn't engaged in a world war. They're the ones who still tend to get very begrudging and tend to stay in that mindset and be very deep and depressed. And I remember coming back to Ireland in 2005 and thinking, oh my gosh, this is a shock to the system, because I really didn't think we did that anymore. In Ireland, we can. Very sadly, very sad. I don't think it's as bad as it was, but it is still there.
It is still there, but it is changing with the society being so much more diverse and multicultural. It is changing.
Yes, it is.
And it is great that that's happening. And, you know, when I was growing up, people say, oh, those Americans, you know, they're so full of themselves. Well, isn't it great that they're full of themselves?
Yes. Yes.
That's what we should have more right from our kids. Big them up and keep on bigging them up. You know, make them, bolster them, reinforce how amazing that child is that you have. Absolutely. And don't be shy about it. You
Absolutely.
know? So yeah, and how lucky were you to visit all those countries and have that experience, Miriam? Like, wow.
It wasn't without its difficulties, and it was sometimes very difficult, particularly in the 80s, getting up at 4 a.m. to get a 6 o'clock train to get into work for 8 o'clock and work till 6 or 8, and you were wrecked and you were physically and mentally very tired. And if you were speaking a different language, it could be very, very tiring. But at the same time, in the long term, it taught you a lot about people. It taught you a lot about how people and their cultures and their psychology works, and the differences between a nationalist, for example, mentality and a royalist mentality, and all these different things got thrown in the mix, which, you know, you're amazed. You can be amazed at times at how that can come back and feed into the work you're doing now.
Nothing's ever wasted. Sure, it's
Nothing.
Not. All that life experience coming to fruition.
This is exactly it. It's exactly it. And you're a solo entrepreneur, and yet not, because obviously you've got Florence and people like that working
I'm
with you.
so lucky.
You're kind of breaking into another ground area now of not being quite so solo, but you also have now this, just to get the name on what you mentioned there to me, youdeservechange.com.
Youdeservechange.com, yeah. And it's predominantly for women. We've also written a course, and it's, I think, unlike anything else out there, because women, when I would be working with them initially doing my energy work, they had all this empathy, all this time and compassion for everybody else out there.
Yes.
And they were never even on the list. Yes. Never on the list. And I, you know, after a session, sometimes I'd say, depending on the client, and obviously if it was relevant, go out and pick a flower in the garden for yourself. Look at that flower, put it by your bed, or put it, you know, in your kitchen window. Do something nice for yourself that doesn't necessarily have to cost any money.
Exactly.
You know, and just feel the gratitude, accept where you are now, and then you'll be able to move forward with greater ease. So we've written a course around, it can be used standalone or in conjunction with the audios for women to actually put themselves on the list. And by the way, not last, number one.
Number one, yeah.
Number one, because it's so important. And when we work with women, like men always make, most men, now I don't mean to generalize, but they do make time for themselves. You know, they do, they can't go to the gym, they're out doing their job, they'll make time maybe, you know, beforehand to socialize, before COVID to socialize, or they're very good at taking time out for themselves.
Play golf.
Yeah. Usually very, very good. And there's no bones about it. It just is happening.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And there might be ructions at home. You know, speaking from past experience, that's all I can speak of my own experience. But they would go out and do their thing. Yeah. And you'd be there literally left with the house, the babies. We've more than one hat. Even if you're single, you have more than one hat on as a woman.
Oh, yeah.
Many different faces, many different masks over the day. And that's why Florence and I got together, because the weight is only a symptom of actually the real problem that's going on.
Exactly.
And we want to big these women up, make them, empower them, make them feel flipping like the goddess that they are in themselves.
Yeah.
And every one of us is a goddess. We just have to realize it ourselves.
You've given me a wonderful cue there. Just to remind everyone that this program on Mondays is being powered by the Women's Inspire movement, which has been created by the wonderful tweeting goddess, Samantha Kelly. Mm-hmm. And I just, that's an excellent cue. Thank you for the lead in on that one, Andrea.
I love it. I love it. And she's Samantha wonderful. Is great.
Absolutely. She really is someone who, she has started this network, which really grows and has evolved into something quite extraordinary with great members such as Andrea here. And I just wanted to highlight that again, because if you are interested in a good support network, please have a look at the Women's Inspire Network. It's absolutely wonderful, worth every penny. Go and have a look. How did you find it yourself, Andrea?
How did I find it? I had seen Samantha Kelly when she first started out. I don't want to say Dragon's Den, but it was the Irish version. And she intrigued me. And she had such gumption and belief in what she was doing, and such hardship at the same time. And I kind of dipped in and out for, like, Twitter is a bit beyond me. I've only got so much bandwidth for tech at the minute, because I've learned so much, especially in this last 14 months. And it's little by little now. And I followed Samantha, and then one day I contacted her, and she introduced me to Twitter. And I thought that was really very kind and generous of you. This is in the public network before this one. Yes. And I haven't really, I just thought, well, wasn't that such a kind thing to do?
Yeah.
And then she opened up this private WIN group, and I said, right, I'm going to go there. Now, I haven't utilized it. I will be quite an introvert. So for me, I had my getting out of my way. I don't like using people.
Yes.
I don't like using, I have very few friends, very close friends that I can call on any time, and that they could call on. I hope they know that anytime, but I don't ever like using people. And for me, networking, there's no real friendship there. But my God, I was proven wrong, thankfully. And that's why I love this network. It's really good. You can put a shout out and people will come back and help you.
Yeah, they do respond. I agree with you totally. I mean, I wouldn't be a very impulsive person, and I'm quite considered. I don't jump onto every social media site just because other people are doing it. I don't follow the crowd in that way. But you do come to learn about these networks very, very well through the Women's Inspire movement. And then I've dipped in and out of it just like yourself. And I remember I first saw her on Nationwide a few years ago. And I found that was a particularly good program. It really profiled her very well. And I got in touch with her then. I phoned her, and from there I've dipped in and out. But things, businesses, they have their lean moments, and there were times when I was really not sure if I could continue with the Women's Inspire network, but I held on to that particular subscription. And I'm glad that I did now, because how many times has she come to my aid? How many times has she jumped on board and said, here's a great tip? She puts her money where her mouth is.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of like-minded people drawn into the group. People who are serious entrepreneurs, and you don't have to be making loads of money. You don't have to be, a super success. You just have to be consistently there, earning your living, going about your business and being creative.
Yeah.
So you're one of those people who are very creative, and, you've got your own business there. You've just to draw attention to it there, everybody. I've got zoom in on the slides here. So it's the AndreaDalton.com. Her Twitter handles, her Facebook handles are there. It's hypnotherapist and havening practitioner Andrea Dalton Hypnotherapy and Havening, if you're looking for that particular handle on Facebook. So I'm absolutely delighted that you came on the show today. There's so much more. Have a look at her website. It's very well laid out. She gives step-by-step explanations of what the various sessions are like. And just to come back to that thing that I said that I would come back to, what is it that would then happen during the initial session for anyone who's nervous about coming to you and you want to put their minds at rest now, whether they're coming about smoking or bullying or whatever? What would the initial session be about?
So before you even come for the initial session, I have an MP3 I send you out to tell you exactly what hypnosis is, by the way.
Okay.
So that allays any fears, or if you have any questions, we'll discuss that during that consultation, or a consultation that's into a session. You sit down, I make sure you're comfortable. I go through an intake form, which is your name, date of birth, just the usual things. And then I just start to ask you, well, why are you here today? What do you want? What brings you here today? And then that opens up a conversation with the client.
Yes.
And then usually they'll start to talk. And a great privilege for me is that their trust, that oftentimes a client comes with some very serious trauma in their life. And that's an area I do like working in.
Yes.
That they have kept something inside of them for nearly a lifetime. And they're a prisoner in their own mind and body as a result of it. This secret that they felt they had to keep to protect themselves and maybe someone else. And even uttering the words out of their mouth that they've never spoken to anybody else before is actually the start of a healing in itself for them.
Yes.
And that's such a privilege and an honor, and something I don't take for granted. Some people are they just need to get it all out. Yeah. And then other people, it's just, you just have to coax them. And it's just, I might say something, well, this happened to me. And I'll only say it if it's actually true and if it's actually relevant. And that might help them to see, I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
And that there is hope for me because I can speak to this person who might be able to help me in some capacity, even if it's to help me feel 5% better.
Yes.
And if they feel 5% better after session 1, you can have like a snowball effect going into session 2. Well, what changed for you between session 1 and session 2? And then session 2, we build on it and we reinforce, and particularly with the havening, we reinforce that how amazing they are, how they're of value to the world. Also in hypnotherapy, both, any modality, how amazing they are, how much of value they are to the world, how equal they are to everybody else on this planet. Because they're unique and special with their own gifts.
No matter what age.
No matter what age. I mean, I had a man, one of my earlier clients, he was 78 and he wanted to find a happy memory. At the age of 78, a happy memory from his childhood. As far as he was concerned, he had none.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
That's so very moving.
It's never, ever too late to go speak to somebody, to reach out and get that help, no matter what it is, because you still have, whether it's a day left to live or another 20 years or 50 years left to live. Isn't it better to live freer in your mind and body than to be trapped?
Andrea Dalton, thank you very much for being on the show. That's a lovely note to leave the interview on.
Thank you,
everybody. Thank you so much for being on, Andrea.
Thank you. Thank you. I really enjoyed that, Miriam. You're so good and very kind. Thank you.
Not at all. Not at all. Listen, if you're looking for someone that you can totally trust, well, look, she's there. Andrea Dalton, theandreadalton.com. Have a look at her website. She'll get back in contact with you very, very quickly if you're interested in coming on board with her and doing some therapy sessions with her. Everybody, This is Writer's Block. My name is Miriam O'Gara. I'll see you next week. I hope you enjoyed the show. Take care of yourself.
Thank you. You too.